You're complicit in your own destruction. Stop pretending otherwise. Right now, you're telling yourself that loneliness is your problem, that you're the victim of a disconnected world, that modern society has failed you, that if only people understood you better, everything would be different. But that's a lie you tell yourself to avoid the most terrifying truth of all. You are the architect of your own isolation. You don't fear loneliness. You fear what loneliness reveals. You fear the moment when all the noise stops, all the distractions disappear, and you're left face to face with the stranger you've been running from your entire life, yourself. Carl Jung understood what you refuse to acknowledge. Your visions become clear when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. But you don't want to awaken, do you? Because awakening means accepting responsibility for the prison you've built around your own soul. And here's what makes this even more pathetic. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. You think you're a victim of social media algorithms, dating apps, consumer culture, but these systems only have power because you gave it to them. They exploit the psychological weaknesses you refuse to face, the unconscious drives you pretend don't exist, the shadow aspects of yourself you've banished to the basement of your psyche. Every swipe, every scroll, every mindless consumption of content is a vote for your own continued unconsciousness. You're not a victim, you're a willing participant in your own psychological imprisonment. And the key to your cell, it's been in your hand the entire time. You are not lonely, you are a coward, and every day you choose comfort over truth, you dig that grave a little deeper. Jung called it the shadow, that collection of repressed desires, fears, and aspects of yourself that you've deemed unacceptable. But here's what he knew that you're still learning. The shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It runs your life from the darkness, like a puppet master pulling strings you can't see. Your loneliness? It's your shadow's revenge. Every time you present a sanitized version of yourself to the world, every time you perform rather than exist, every time you choose being liked over being real, your shadow grows stronger. And that growing darkness eventually consumes everything authentic about you. Think about your last meaningful conversation. I'll bet you can't remember one, can you? Because you don't have conversations. You have performances. You're so terrified of revealing your true thoughts, your real desires, your actual fears, that you've forgotten what they are. You've become a puppet dancing to invisible strings, wondering why you feel so empty inside. But here's the cruel irony. The very traits you've banished to your shadow are often the most interesting things about you. Your anger, that's your passion in disguise. Your sexuality, that's your life force being suppressed. Your selfishness, that's your self-preservation instinct that you've pathologized. Your darkness, that's your depth, your complexity, your humanity. These aren't bugs in your personality, they're features. But you've been so conditioned to be good, so programmed to be acceptable, that you've amputated half of your soul and then wondered why you feel incomplete. Jung observed that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. But you'd rather stay blind than face your own darkness, wouldn't you? You'd rather maintain the comfortable illusion of being a good person than do the uncomfortable work of becoming a whole person. And then you wonder why you feel fundamentally alone. It's because you're not bringing your whole self to any relationship. You're bringing a carefully curated highlight reel of who you think you should be. The people around you aren't connecting with you. They're connecting with your persona, that mask Jung identified as the face we present to the world. Let's talk about your persona, that socially acceptable mask you wear every day. What started as a necessary tool for social functioning has become your psychological prison. You've worn it so long, you've forgotten there's a face underneath. Every morning you put on your acceptable personality like clothing. You check your social media to see which version of yourself got the most likes yesterday. You curate your thoughts before speaking them, filtering out anything that might be controversial, challenging, or, God forbid, authentically you. This is why solitude terrifies you. Not because you're alone, but because you're alone with a stranger, the stranger you've become to yourself. When the audience disappears, when there's no one to perform for, when the feedback stops coming, the terrifying question emerges. Who are you when no one is watching? You don't know, and that not knowing is what you're actually running from. Jung understood that the persona becomes pathological when we identify with it completely. When you believe you are your persona, rather than simply wearing it, you've sold your soul for social acceptance. You've traded your authenticity for approval, your depth for likes, your truth for tolerance. And the cost is enormous. Every time you choose being appropriate over being authentic, you commit a small suicide. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid conflict, you abandon the person you could become. Every time you perform rather than exist, you feed the very emptiness that loneliness reveals. But here's what's really sick about this system: it's self-reinforcing. The more you abandon yourself, the more empty you feel. The more empty you feel, the more desperately you seek external validation. The more you seek external validation, the more you have to perform. The more you perform, the further you drift from who you actually are. You're trapped in a psychological feedback loop of your own creation, spinning faster and faster into a void of your own making. And you have the audacity to call it loneliness when it's actually self-abandonment. Consider your closest relationships. How many of them would survive if you showed up as your complete, unfiltered self? How many people in your life actually know your darkest thoughts, your strangest desires, your deepest fears? If the answer is none, or very few, then you're not actually close to anyone. You're close to their opinion of your performance. But let's talk about your favorite psychological defense mechanism: projection. Instead of owning your darkness, you cast it onto the world around you, like a movie projector casting images onto a screen. Instead of facing your own capacity for cruelty, you rage about how cruel others are. Instead of acknowledging your desperate need for validation, you criticize everyone else for being attention-seeking. People are so fake these days. Are they? Or are you so committed to your own facade that authenticity in others feels threatening, like a mirror reflecting back your own inauthenticity? Nobody wants real connection anymore. Really? Or have you become so skilled at surface-level interaction that depth terrifies you because it would require you to go deep yourself? Everyone is so selfish and narcissistic. Perhaps they are. Or maybe you're seeing your own repressed selfishness reflected back at you, and it makes you uncomfortable because it reminds you of the parts of yourself you've disowned. This projection mechanism is how the system works so perfectly. It doesn't need to be a conspiracy. It's powered by your own psychological avoidance. Social media algorithms don't make you compare yourself to others. They exploit your pre-existing tendency toward envy and insecurity that you refuse to examine. Dating apps don't make you treat people like commodities. They capitalize on your already existing objectification impulses that you won't acknowledge. Consumer culture doesn't create your emptiness. It feeds on the void you've created by abandoning yourself. You've made yourself the perfect target for exploitation by refusing to examine your own psychological vulnerabilities. You've externalized your locus of control so completely that you're helpless against any system that promises to fill the hole in your soul. But that hole can't be filled from the outside. It can only be filled by reintegrating the parts of yourself you've disowned. Jung wrote, Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But you don't want understanding. You want someone to blame. You want to be the victim of circumstances beyond your control, because taking responsibility would require the one thing you're most terrified of: changing. Every person who annoys you is carrying some aspect of your shadow that you refuse to own. Every quality you judge in others exists somewhere within you, locked away in the basement of your psyche. But acknowledging this would mean admitting that you're not the enlightened, evolved person you pretend to be. It would mean facing the uncomfortable truth that you contain the same capacity for pettiness, cruelty, and selfishness that you condemn in others. So instead, you project. You make the world your scapegoat. You blame society, technology, other people, anything except the one person who has the power to change your experience: you. Here's where it gets even more insidious. You think your loneliness is personal, but it's actually archetypal. Jung identified the collective unconscious, the shared psychological patterns that shape human behavior across cultures and time. And one of the most powerful patterns in modern culture is the archetype of the disconnected self. We live in a civilization that has perfected the art of alienation, not through force, but through seduction. Every advertisement promises connection while selling isolation. Every social platform promises community while delivering performance anxiety. Every self-help guru promises authenticity while peddling another mask to wear. And you participate willingly, eagerly even. You scroll through feeds of curated lives, comparing your inner experience to others' outer presentation. You consume other people's highlight reels and compare them to your behind-the-scenes footage. You swipe through human beings like they're menu items, reducing complex souls to a series of photos and bullet points. You consume inspirational content instead of doing the actual work of transformation. You collect wisdom like trophies without ever applying it. You've become a consumer of connection rather than a creator of it, a spectator of life rather than a participant. This is what Jung meant when he talked about participation mystique, the unconscious identification with collective patterns that prevents individual development. You've absorbed the cultural complex around loneliness without ever questioning whether the cure might be worse than the disease. The collective unconscious tells you that connection comes from compatibility, that love comes from being understood, that belonging comes from being accepted. But these are all lies designed to keep you trapped in external dependency. Real connection comes from wholeness. Real love comes from self-acceptance. Real belonging comes from the courage to be yourself, even when it makes others uncomfortable. But facing this truth would require admitting that you've been complicit in your own imprisonment. It would require acknowledging that every time you've chosen comfort over growth, approval over authenticity, being liked over being real, you've voted for the very system that's now suffocating you. The modern world offers you 1,000 ways to avoid yourself. Netflix binges, social media scrolling, dating app swiping, online shopping, podcast consumption, YouTube videos, an endless stream of distractions from the one person you're supposed to be getting to know, you. And each distraction feels justified. I'm learning something. I'm staying connected. I'm relaxing. But what you're really doing is running from the silence that would force you to confront who you actually are when all the noise stops. Let's dig deeper into why your relationships feel so empty, why your romantic life is a series of disappointments, why you keep attracting the wrong people or pushing away the right ones. Jung identified the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine and masculine aspects within each person. These inner figures shape how we relate to others, how we project our needs and fantasies onto potential partners, how we seek completion through connection. But here's your problem. Instead of developing a conscious relationship with your inner masculine or feminine, you're projecting it onto everyone around you. You're not looking for a partner, you're looking for someone to carry the psychological burden you refuse to bear yourself. If you're a man, you're probably projecting your undeveloped feminine side onto women, expecting them to provide the emotional depth, intuitive wisdom, nurturing care, and creative inspiration you won't cultivate within yourself. You want them to be your therapist, your mother, your muse, your spiritual guide, everything except an equal partner. Then you wonder why your relationships feel suffocating, why women seem needy or demanding, why they eventually leave or lose interest. If you're a woman, you're likely projecting your undeveloped masculine side onto men, expecting them to provide the direction, strength, assertiveness, and leadership you won't develop in yourself. You want them to be your protector, your provider, your decision maker, your anchor, everything except a companion on your journey of growth. Then you complain about attracting weak men who can't handle your strength, or controlling ones who try to diminish it. Either way, you're not showing up as a complete person. You're showing up as half a human being, desperately seeking your other half in someone else. And when that inevitably fails, because no one can complete you except you, you blame them for not being enough, or you blame yourself for not being worthy of love. This is how the modern dating hellscape perpetuates itself. Millions of incomplete people seeking completion in other incomplete people, all of them running from the fundamental work of individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself. But integration is hard work. It requires facing the aspects of yourself you've disowned. If you're a man, it means embracing your sensitivity, your emotionality, your intuition, your need for beauty and meaning. If you're a woman, it means owning your aggression, your ambition, your sexuality, your capacity for leadership and independence. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But that's exactly what healthy relationships require. Two complete people choosing to share their wholeness, rather than two incomplete people trying to steal wholeness from each other. Your romantic failures aren't random. They're not bad luck. They're the direct result of trying to build intimacy on the foundation of self-abandonment. You can't give what you don't have. You can't love someone else authentically until you've learned to love yourself completely. Shadow and light, masculine and feminine, acceptable and unacceptable parts. Here's what Jung discovered that will make you deeply uncomfortable. Your personality, as you experience it, is largely compensatory. What you think are your strengths are often overcompensations for qualities you fear you lack. What you think are your values are often reactions against parts of yourself you've rejected. Are you excessively nice? You're probably compensating for unconscious aggression that you're terrified to acknowledge. Are you rigidly moral? You're likely overcompensating for shadow impulses towards selfishness and hedonism. Are you constantly helping others? You might be avoiding the uncomfortable reality that you need help yourself. Your conscious personality is like a seesaw, balanced precariously against the weight of everything you've pushed into your unconscious. And loneliness often strikes hardest when this compensatory structure starts to crack, when the energy required to maintain your false self becomes unsustainable. This is why midlife crises exist. This is why people suddenly feel empty after achieving everything they thought they wanted. This is why success often feels hollow. You've been living in service to a compensatory identity that isn't actually you. The persona you've constructed isn't just a mask you wear for others. It's a prison you've built to contain the parts of yourself that society deemed unacceptable. But those imprisoned aspects don't disappear. They ferment in your unconscious, growing stronger and more twisted with each passing year. Jung observed that what you resist persists. The more energy you spend trying not to be something, the more that something controls your life. If you're terrified of being seen as needy, you'll become compulsively independent, which is just neediness in disguise. If you're afraid of being perceived as selfish, you'll become pathologically selfless, which is just another form of narcissism. Your compensation creates its own prison. You become trapped in the opposite of what you fear, unable to find the middle ground where authentic humanity lives. And in that prison, cut off from half of your psychological reality, you wonder why you feel so alone. The truth is that most of what you call your personality is actually your trauma response dressed up as character traits. Your strengths are often just sophisticated ways of avoiding your weaknesses. Your values are frequently just elaborate justifications for your fears. Your shadow is not your enemy, it's your rejected potential. Every quality you've disowned still belongs to you. Every aspect you've projected onto others is asking to come home. Every part of yourself you've deemed unacceptable is waiting to be integrated consciously rather than expressed unconsciously. The energy you spend suppressing your shadow could be used for creation. The power you waste maintaining your persona could fuel authentic self-expression. The attention you give to avoiding yourself could be directed toward becoming yourself. But integration is not the same as expression. Jung wasn't advocating for acting out every impulse or abandoning moral responsibility. He was pointing toward the possibility of conscious relationship with all aspects of your psyche, owning your capacity for darkness so you can choose light, acknowledging your selfish impulses so you can choose genuine generosity. When you know your shadow consciously, it stops controlling you unconsciously. When you own your projections, you stop being manipulated by them. When you integrate your disowned aspects, you become whole enough to offer something real to others. Stop using loneliness as an excuse to avoid the most important relationship of your life, the one with yourself. Your shadow is waiting. Your projections are ready to be withdrawn. Your persona is asking to be retired. Your individuation is calling. The person you're looking for isn't in the next relationship, the next friendship, the next social gathering. They're in the mirror, behind all the masks you wear, beyond all the projections you cast, beneath all the stories you tell yourself about who you are. That person you'll discover, they're not perfect. They're not always acceptable. They're not designed to please everyone, but they're real. They're whole. They're worth knowing. They're worth being. And they've been waiting for you to come home. The question isn't whether you'll be alone. The question is whether you'll finally have the courage to meet who you actually are when you stop running from yourself. The choice is yours. It always has been.